Okay, welcome back again.
I need you.
We do have more questions, and I'm just delighted that we're probing into issues that I think we're all concerned about with regards to the city. Our first question will go to Mr. Dida, followed by Mr. Campbell and Mr. Mizitich. The first question asks, what do you think about what appears to be overexpansion of our city staff, and what do you plan to do about it? This has far-reaching effects, including worsening the unfunded liabilities issue.
Those are two parts of the question. I don't think our staff is too large. I think it's underutilized. If you take a look at how many consultants we get, if you take a look at the qualifications, education experience, and the longevity in the city to understand the residents of our city staff, I believe they can be given a lot of the chores we give to consultants. And it would be a satisfying effort on their part to use their knowledge in that kind of expertise. As far as the unfunded balance is concerned, I believe you're talking about pensions. We have a two-tier pension system. The first tier, which has been in existence for who knows how long, results in an employee who finishes his full term in a public office ends up with 75% of his highest pay for the rest of his life, including COLA. Our city council went to a tier 2. And it changed the number somewhat. It reduced the percentage, but increased the number of years, and the net effect of that is 70%. I think we can go to other kinds of retirement programs, don't have to be funded by the city. There are organizations can do that for the city quite effectively and reduce our costs for all new employees. Obviously, we made a bargain with the original employees, and it would not be appropriate to go back on that. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Mizitich.
Well, we actually had an analysis done by Matrix Corporation on the number of employees. It was an organizational assessment, and they felt that the number, approximately 54 employees, was adequate for our city of our size and for the functions and demands of the residents. And so that is basically what we have today. We have 54 individuals working for the city. As far as the pensions, I know that that is an issue that I have been concerned with on the council for my time on the council. I mean, unfunded pension liabilities is something that I think that we all are concerned about in our state government and cities. 2 years ago, we had a discussion on pensions, and the city came up with a new program for pension reform, what we could do at the local level. During that discussion, I had put forth my own model, if you will, my own proposal for pension reform. It was where the city employees had to pay more, or was a phased in over 3 years, over a 3-year period where they would end up paying more and more of their pension obligation that the city was picking up at the time. And I had the city staff analyze it, and by their own admission, that plan would have saved $2.1 to $2.3 million in pension costs. However, it was very aggressive, and it put a lot on the employees' backs. The council didn't support that at the time, and so I didn't win on that one. But I was looking for a maximum savings. That was my point. And so, you know, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose them.
Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Linda. I remember that 2 years ago, and I think you and I were on the wrong end of a 3-2 vote on that pension plan. What we implemented 2 years ago actually resulted in a pension spike for the senior-most employees, of which several of them have benefited from as they retired over the last 2 years. I had done the analysis on what we were doing. We were putting more of the pay towards the pension onto the employees, but at the same time, we increased their salaries to offset that. And the plan that I put forward was, if you just bump up their salaries, in this case 5%, it becomes CalPERSable pensionable income. So in other words, if you're a highly paid senior employee that's going into retirement, you'd love to get a 5% salary bump the year before you retire, because you then get 70% of that for the rest of your life. I mean, Warren Buffett would buy into that investment. He'd go all in on something like that. But that's effectively what we did. My plan was, if we're going to, I supported Anthony's originally, but we weren't going to win that. What I wanted to do when we agreed to go forward with that 5% pay bump is do it in the form of an every other week, same time as a regular paycheck, but it be a bonus, so it's not pensionable. So the employees would be able to keep the same amount of take-home money, but we wouldn't then saddle the residents with this increased pension cost, which is what happened. But again, the makeup of the council at that time was in favor of bumping these pensions up, and they're gone, we're here, and that's why I'm asking to stay for another 4 years, is to continue this good work. I wish that we had a little bit more time to talk about this, because I've got this really is a fascinating topic to get into, and you could spend an hour just talking about pensions, but I'll cede the rest of my time to Mr. Dida.
I think, no, we spoke already.
I was
Well,
third, okay.
You have a 1-minute closing statement to eventually to deal with that.
Great.
Not now. Okay, our next question, we'll start with Mr. Mizitich and then go down the row. In your view, how should the city interface with the school district and the library district?
Well, that is a good question. We're separate entities. The school district has a budget 4 times as large as the city of Rancho Palos Verdes. And our city has been generous in the past in helping the school district with some infrastructure projects, namely the pool over at PV High and the pool over at Peninsula High. I was going to say Rolling Hills. That's how far I go back. But I think that our relationship should be that we work with the school district, because a strong school district is good for our property tax, for our property values, and I think that's important that as people come into our community, that they have good, strong schools, and so I support our schools, and I support the library district. But I posed a question a while back in a council meeting about the future of libraries and with the internet, and whether libraries are going to be big internet halls, or what's going to happen with books. I personally like books very much, but in the future, 20 years from now, I wonder if people will be going to a library to get information other than what they can get on a iPad or a computer. And so that's going to be a challenge for that entity, is how they're going to go ahead and move forward in the future. But I know that we need to be supportive and work together with both the school district and the library district, because it's part of our entire community makeup. And people, that do want to go to a library, we have them. If you want to send your kids to great schools, we have Palos Verdes Unified School District. I'm a product of the Palos Verdes Unified School District, Merrill Est High School, class of 1978.
Mr. Campbell.
Thank you. That's a terrific question. There's been some really good questions tonight. The school district and the relationship with the city of RPV and the RPV Council and the library district, for that matter, is extremely important, much more so than you might think just from the surface of it. Number one, the library district is currently being run by Kathy Gould, and I know a lot of you, I see some familiar faces in the audience. Many of you know Kathy, and you know what a superb job she is and what a great leader she is for that district. One of my first jobs on a committee when I was elected council is to be the liaison with the school district. And part of the reason for that is I'm the father of two little boys. I've got a third grader and a sixth grader. And so I spend a lot of my time over at the schools, helping out at the schools. My third grader goes to Cornerstone, which is a parent participation school, and so I put in a fair amount of time and really enjoy that work. What most people don't realize is that all of our school campuses effectively are our active parks on the weekends. You'd be perhaps surprised to find out that in some cities, the school districts lock up their facilities over the weekends and keep you out. That doesn't happen here. They could. It is a separate entity. It's got its own governance over there. They could lock them up. They could charge the city, or they could charge resident groups, any amount of money that they thought the market could bear in order to be able to get access to it. But they don't. So we've got a very collaborative, open relationship with them. And I talk to my colleagues on the school district board frequently, and I think they're doing a pretty good job. They've got a new principal over at Cornerstone that came from Mira Catalina, who my third grader has reported to me that they all have given him a big thumbs up. So I don't want to throw any names out there and embarrass him, but he and my little third grader group and the parents really are enjoying the schools.
Mr. Dida.
The school and library districts are separate taxing entities, and as such, it is not our job to take your tax dollars that you give to the city and provide them to another taxing agency. However, there are certain circumstances where a benefit can be derived uniquely for our residents, which would not be available otherwise. And in those cases, to assist in providing that benefit to our residents, I think is appropriate. We've done that in a number of instances, putting in money for some capital improvements that then later on can be used by our residents. One example of our cooperation is that we have a joint powers agreement for PV Transit. Now, that's supported by the three cities, and it provides some transportation for school district children, so we are cooperating. As Councilman Campbell said, the Civic Center Act allows us to use a lot of their facilities when they're not being used by the school district for our residents. So that cooperation is there. I think it should continue, and it should be enforced whenever it's a benefit to the residents.
Thank you very much. We'll begin now with Mr. Campbell, Mr. Dida, and then Mr. Mizitich to follow. The question asks, would you support beautification of the median on Hawthorne Boulevard?
Excellent question. Where I live is just down the street from Hess Park, and we're just off of Hawthorne as we have this debate tonight. I live in the Monaco Homeowners Association, and we have just over a mile linear along Hawthorne Boulevard. We have those awful old cinder block walls that aren't always standing straight up that we have gotten so used to seeing that I think a lot of us just pretend not to see them. And for years we wrestled with what to do, and we started off with trying to get all 95 neighbors that front on Hawthorne that share some of that cinder block wall to just agree to the color to paint them all so it would at least look uniform, and we couldn't even get that done. What we ended up doing with the beautification grant program, and by investing our own HOA money, is over a 3-year program, we planted and irrigated that entire mile. And so if you drive down Hawthorne now and look at the Monaco side of things, you'll see the result of that years of growth. It's not perfect, but it is certainly covered up, and it's been a good solution. I'm happy to say also that the city has adopted citywide that same concept, with these old chain link fences along Hawthorne Boulevard, for example, of just bypassing the complexity of trying to get every citizen, in agreement on it. and for the city to take over the responsibility of planting and irrigating that so that over time we'll have a beautification of Hawthorne. We've also got the synchronization of the lights, which comes in the form of a grant that's paying for 90% of the traffic signal synchronization going all the way down Hawthorne. That'll keep traffic moving quite a bit. The other issue that we've got to deal with is the actual median. So we've got the corridors along the side, which I've been talking about, but we also have the median beautification that's necessary. I personally think that this traffic synchronization program and just keeping traffic moving forward is going to solve some of the beautification issue, because at least we won't be sitting at a stoplight looking at some ugly median. We'll just keep going.
Thank you. Mr. Dida.
I think Hawthorne as an entrance to our city is shameful right now. As you go through the other cities, you see a plan, a development, an inviting space. You come up Hawthorne, and it looks almost like a disaster area, and we do need to do something about that. The concrete median with an occasional green piece of landscaping is not my idea of something that looks decent. Back in the original city council, we developed a landscaping plan that was water tolerant, drought tolerant rather, and low maintenance that could be applied throughout the city. I think resurrecting some of that and applying it might be worthwhile. The real problem is in the corridor sides. Each development did something different. Some of them have done it well enough that it has stood the test of time. Others haven't. The city is attempting to do something about that, and by cooperating with those neighbors and friends, I think it would be something that could be achieved and needs to be addressed. It's one of the infrastructures that benefit the people. There is another corridor that is overlooked, and I drive it every day, and that's Silver Spur. When you look on the side of Silver Spur opposite the school, it is horrible, and it needs help. So I would include that along with Hawthorne.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Mizutich?
At one of our budget meetings this over the summer, I was in support of funding Hawthorne Boulevard to put it on the funded CIP list to beautify the medians. I think it is very, very important. I didn't get the support on that particular item because we had so many other items that are on our list of priorities, and with limited funds, finite funds, I should say, it becomes a priority list that sometimes becomes challenging to get those things put forward. I would, in the future, fight for Hawthorne Boulevard. I agree that Hawthorne Boulevard needs beautification. The medians definitely need beautification. When you come into our city, you should see a nice greeting type of theme, on our streets. And I think that not only Hawthorne Boulevard should have that. I think Western Avenue, with the assistance of the city of Los Angeles, should have the same thing. I think all the entrances to Rancho Palos Verdes should have beautification, because it does set a tone for our quality of life, and I believe that it is important to enough of our residents that it should, be a priority in the future.
Thank you. The next question, we'll begin with Mr. Dida, and then Mr. Mizutich, and then Mr. Campbell. The question asks, thank you for your leadership. The question I have is related to the mayoral role. If re-elected, would you take that mayoral role during the rotation or not? That's the question.
Well, I'm not at the council at the time, and there has been a misconception that the mayor and mayor pro tem were automatically rotated. That has not been true from the initial onset of the city. The first mayor was Mayor Marilyn Ryan. I was mayor pro tem, but I was not the following mayor. It always takes a 3 vote. And I think that expresses the confidence that the other members of the council have in the person they want to lead them in their agendas and represent the city. I think that's appropriate. I think it should continue, and we should get away from the stereotype rotation no matter what. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mizutich.
Well, I did serve as mayor last year, and I think that Ken's right that you have to have a vote of 3 individuals on the council to become mayor or mayor pro tem. It usually follows a rotating pattern, but not necessarily happens. It is a lot of work compared to a council member role, probably twice to 3 times the level of work. The mayor not only has to be prepared for the meetings, he has to, or she, and in the case we have a female mayor right now, has to be run the meetings, and that is a challenge in itself. The mayor has to sign all the documents that the council approves. The mayor is invited predominantly to many community functions where they might have a lot of conflicts because 2 or 3 organizations want to have the mayor there on the same day or perhaps the same time. And so it gets to be a very challenging role. I would, offer, if I was reelected, I would serve as mayor again. And hopefully my colleagues would support me on that.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Linda. If I get reelected again and the timing was right, I certainly would serve as mayor. Last year I was mayor pro tem, and at the time I had, I said earlier, I've got a 6th grader. He was in 5th grade, which is still elementary school. They were both at the parent participation school, and I was spending a lot of time volunteering over there. I'm very involved in Scouts. I run a small business, and we've been doing very well the last year and a half. That was taking up a lot of my time. But I also managed to get a thumb in my eye a little over a year ago that required 2 surgeries on my left eye. And that happened about this time last year, maybe September and again in October. So I had some issues I was dealing with as far as getting used to reading and working off a computer again. So I think it's healthy to break up the rotation in the mayor. I think too many cities just do it automatically. And again, as I said, the timing may not be right for you personally, business-wise, family-wise, health-wise, whatever it is. It's healthy to break it up, and that's why I voluntarily didn't pursue being the mayor this year. And lastly, I mean, I'm just thrilled to be on city council. I mean, there isn't a better seat in town where you can do good and help people out. And being mayor or not was not my end goal. I'm just thrilled to be in a position to where I can be a positive influence in the community. Thanks.
Thank you. We have 2 more questions left, so I think what we'll do is take the final 2 questions, and then we'll have your closing statements, which you can, given the time frame, then we have more time, you can make them 2 minutes long rather than only 1 minute. So the first question will go to Mr. Mizutich, and we'll go down the line, and it asks, what positions do you hold that are different from the other 2 candidates? Positions.
As far as the city is concerned, or
This
is
is,
it, or
USC or UCLA?
see, that's a real broad question. I mean,
Whoever asked the question, would you like to clarify it? I would think it has to do with your life in general. It's how I would interpret it, I think.
professionally, then
I think
guess.
so.
Yeah,
Someone
you
here
know,
who asked it would like to
and I'll
comment?
I'll take it from the perspective of professionally. I
Okay.
guess if gentlemen, if that's okay with you, we can answer it maybe from that perspective. So it's we all know what kind of the question is, but. Professionally, I am a businessman. I do consulting for the petroleum industry. I have a project overseas right now And I also have business that I do here in the United States that is of a national scope. And so I'm busy as a consultant doing that type of work. And that is my day job, because the council job is part-time, but it does take up a lot of hours. Ken and I were just talking about it at the break. It's easily 50 hours a month, and if not more, because not only do we have the council meetings that we prepare for, and what I usually do is I read my binder, and then I go through and highlight it, and then I read it again before a council meeting. So I go through 2 readings, and some of these binders, are that thick. Last night it was that thick. And then we have our committee assignments. I currently serve on 7 committees within, as a liaison to our regional law enforcement and county sanitation district and some others that I serve on, and that takes time as well. And then we have our community functions. We're asked to go to homeowners events, and we're asked to go to region-wide community events. We're asked to occasionally travel to League of California Cities. And so it's easily 50 to maybe 80 hours a month. But you know what? It's all worth it, because I grew up in the city, and I do love it very much.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell.
I think Anthony did a good job of describing what the complexities and the amount of effort that goes in to the job. I'll give you an example. A week ago Friday, I had to fly up to Sacramento, up and back same day, as part of my duties as the council representative to the League of California Cities. There was some important work to be discussed up there and voted on. The League is an organization of about 140 some different cities that band together and support each other in regards to our point of view as being a small city versus a lot of these laws at a state level that may have unintended effects on cities like ours. So it's an important voice to have represented up in Sacramento. But that takes a day away from work, takes a day away from family. But if I wasn't on the city council, I'd still be just as engaged in the community. Anthony's right. It's easily 50 hours a month. I mean, I think it's probably closer to 80 on average. It varies a little bit. During budget season, it's more. Other times, August, for example, is a typically slow month. But you talk a little bit about our positions. I'm a small business owner. We're in the commercial real estate business. We do mostly leasing of office space, warehouse space, real estate advisory, consulting type work. And again, getting back to the council job, I was plenty busy in the community just being a t-ball coach, and I'm not qualified enough in baseball to coach at any level higher than that. But that sort of stuff I just love doing. I just love being engaged in the community, helping out the homeowners association or scoutings. I'm an assistant scoutmaster. This is a great city. By the way, we've got term limits, so if I'm reelected, this would be my last term, and there's a good reason for that. There's a whole lot of other folks out there that are just as engaged, that are doing great work in the community, that are thinking about serving on council, and it's good to clear us out ever so often and give everybody else an opportunity, because look, when we're gone, Ken's always going to be engaged. I mean, look at him. 40 years later. I mean, Anthony's going to be engaged. I mean, the jobs change around, and that's a good, healthy thing.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Dida.
Okay, as far as my professional career is concerned, I worked for 2 aerospace companies, and in both of them I managed 7 different laboratories dealing with simulation, electronics, avionics, radar, and that sort of thing. I was privileged to work during the time which most people consider the golden years of that kind of activity. But really my current task is one that can be overwhelming. I'm retired, and my wife insists on a honey-do list that is about 2 miles long. And so my time is, you can be sure my time is well taken up by that. At the present time, as far as the city is concerned, I'm vice chair of the Oversight Committee for the RDA Development Program. One of the things that both of the other gentlemen at the dais had indicated is the work they do. Each of them has approximately 7 other organizations besides the city where they have to go and represent the city. 5 times 7, that's 35 organizations. This city is busy, it's well represented, and the people do spend an awful lot of time. They're talking about 80 hours. That's probably the minimum. I know I kept track of it on the first city council when it wasn't quite this busy, and I spent 26 hours a week on city business over and above my job. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our last question, let's see, and we'll begin with Mr. Dida, then Mr. Mizitich, and Mr. Campbell follows. As a council member, I think that's a good closing question. As a council member and/or mayor, please list 2 achievements you were directly involved with that you are most proud of.
Number 1 was being involved with the policy committee on Save Our Coastline, which orchestrated the incorporation of this city. That is a unique opportunity. How many people get a chance to do that? The second thing that I'm most proud of, really, is the trust that our city council had in the residents, in that we went to the residents without formal committees and all the Brown Act stuff, just asked them to form a committee of their own and come back and recommend to us the goals that this city should have. That was challenged later on as being outdated. And I put together a group of over 210 people in a number of committees to review that. And as I said earlier, they reconfirmed that the goals of the city, whether you were here at the beginning, you're a new resident, or from Western Avenue, which was not part of the city at the time, people have the same goals. Thank you.
Mr. Mizitich?
When I first got on the council, I introduced zero-based budgeting concepts to the city, which the council adopted. We run a hybrid zero-based budget as far as our budgeting policy in the city. And what the benefit of that is that our city council has a greater transparency of line items within the budget that we can scrutinize and analyze and do a better job, a fiduciary job for you, the residents. And so our council has been running that type of policy of hybrid zero-based budgeting for most of the time that I've been on the council. The other thing that I brought to the council was, of course, in regards to law enforcement, and that was the bicycle patrol. I was also highly supportive of the volunteers on patrol as well. Again, those have brought in 2,800 more patrol hours in our city to help fight and prevent crime. And as I said before, the volunteers on patrol are free. Doesn't cost you residents anything, but you're getting a huge benefit from it. So it was a great concept. And finally, as a delegate and representative to the Max Transit Board, which is the bus service that several cities in the area were part of, including Rancho Palos Verdes, I pointed out to our city council that we had 4% of the ridership and we were paying for 16% of the cost of Max Transit. I went to the board and I was rebuffed as far as asking for an audit and asking questions of why we were paying our unfair share of the costs. Max Transit wanted RPV to rejoin that organization or sign up again for that another 7 years of that organization, plus pay for capital expenditure costs on new engines for all their buses. I came back to the city council and recommended that we withdraw from Max Transit. The savings that we achieved with that was $1.2 million.
Mr. Campbell.
Thank you. There's a number of items I could point to, but I think I'll stick to 2 that are probably more visible out there in the community. Number one, we accomplished just last night this dramatic expansion in transparency of what our great city employees make. I thought was a very important goal to have. I campaigned on it. And I have stuck with it in the first 4 years that I've been here. We just voted it in, and I want to make sure that we get it implemented the way the council had agreed to implement it last night. We've got something in our campaign called Promises Kept, and it's pretty simple. It's what we teach our kids. You make a promise, you keep it. It's how we try to conduct ourselves in our professional lives. I think that is how local government ought to conduct itself all the time. So when you make a campaign promise, you should keep it. That was an important one for me last night, and it was great to see the council all come together and see the culmination of years' worth of work come into play. The other one that was very, very complex, and at the time, not many people gave it much chance of success, and that was fixing the relationship with Mr. Trump. At the time I was elected, and I ran on this also, it was to try to reduce the number of lawsuits and litigation that our city was involved in. I've got quite a bit of experience in the corporate world of negotiating with lawyers and settling cases, and we went out to Trump with a different approach. I got the support of the rest of the council because I think they just thrown their hands up at that point. The relationship was so bad. And I went out to Mr. Trump and sat down with him and his people, and I presented an alternative plan, and that was that we were going to unilaterally stop fighting with him and start supporting him and all those little things that a complex business needs help with from the city. And it took 2.5 years, and there is hours worth of great stories behind this. But the bottom line was it was important, and the council supported me on this, that we not just beat Mr. Trump in court because that's debatable, and if we won, he would just sue us again. He's a very smart, tough negotiator. It was important for our strategy that we resolve the case, that he drop it, because what I was looking for was a lasting peace with that organization, and we have it now. I mean, it's extraordinarily good. He is a man of his word. His people, when they shake hands, they do what they promise, and I couldn't be more thrilled with the outcome on that.
Thank you very much. We can now go to the closing statements, and I think we'll go in reverse order from the opening statements. So we'll begin with Mr. Dida, then Mr. Campbell, and then Mr. Mizetich. 2 minutes. You can have 1 or 2 minutes, whichever you prefer, but we're extending it to 2 minutes.
Yeah, got to bend it properly. I was prepared for 3 minutes, but obviously that's not going to happen, so I'll just briefly go over some things. I want to thank the League of Women Voters again for hosting the forum. It gave me an opportunity to acquaint you with some of my background, involvement in the city, and some of the philosophies I have with respect to what Rancho Palos Verdes should be. There are 17 issues that I have identified that I think the city can improve upon, and they are in my literature, and you'll be getting those in the mail without too much delay. There is one main issue that concerns me very much, and I've been a champion of this issue now since 1983. We can't let Portuguese Bend slide just continue. We need to do something about it aggressively. At the same time, we need to reinstate some of the oversight and control that the city had originally, and not rely as much as we do on staff to limit what we can do at a meeting by telling us how much time we can spend. Those priorities belong to the council, not to the staff. So I want to thank you again for your efforts in leading to the incorporation of Rancho Palos Verdes. The League of Women Voters were the basic progenitors of that. Your continued involvement and betterment of our city and the rest of the community is very much appreciated. The only endorsement I ask is that you vote for me on November 5th.
Thank you very much. Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Linda. Again, I'm Brian Campbell. I'm currently serving you on the City Council. I'm asking for your vote for one more term until our term limits kick in so we can continue the good work and great progress that we made in the first 4 years. I talked earlier about the implementation of good policy. We've got some good policy that has been voted in place. The key, though, is exercising the proper amount of oversight to make sure that that policy actually gets implemented. We've put in place bidding out our city banking services for the first time ever. It's something that other cities do. It's something that is done in the private sector frequently. We now do that. I think if we can help close a little bit of that gap between how the public sector works and the private sector works, I think we'll all be better off. And we now have an employee union to deal with. That's going to take a particular type of skill set and mind frame to successfully negotiate with. Having your employees as part of a union isn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, you're dealing with them all in a group now instead of one at a time. And I think if we take a positive attitude about this, it can end up being win-win. It'll all be done in the open. It'll all be transparent. And everybody's going to know what everybody else's cards are. In the future, I am a big proponent of meaningful council engagement with major initiatives and projects that City Hall is involved in. And I think the public these days in this era of transparency and accountability, they expect that of us. Those of you that know me, I think know I'm a pretty straight talking person, and I'll say what I think, and I'll ask tough questions when they need to be asked. What I like to say, though, is they may be tough questions, but the treatment will always be fair. I like this job. It has been certainly more work, as Councilman Misitich was talking about, than I expected. People ask me, what's the biggest surprise about the job? And number one, it is more work than you think. However, it is a lot more interesting than I ever thought it was, and the amount of positive impact you can have in the community, you're not going to find anywhere else. So thank you.
Thank you. Our last statement, Mr. Misitich.
Linda, I want to thank you and the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum tonight. Having served the 42,000 residents of Rancho Palos Verdes as mayor and councilman for the past 4 years has been an honor and a privilege. As our city celebrated its 40th anniversary, we remain fiscally prudent and solvent, and financially solvent. While public service certainly has its rewards, we have faced many challenges on the City Council, some which have directly impacted the residents of Rancho Palos Verdes. Together, we have addressed several issues, including San Ramon and other infrastructure items, Marymount, increased public safety needs, Annenberg, memorializing the 20-year-long saga of our extensive trails network, and more, as well as the ongoing zoning challenges soon to become before the council as they leave the Planning Commission. Upon assuming office in 2010, I introduced a zero-based budget format for accountability and transparency purposes. Our city remains financially sound and prudent with a balanced budget of $24.7 million in operating funds with over 50% in reserves. In today's economic climate, that's a big accomplishment. Thanks largely to the success of Terranea and their TOT tax has aided greatly in the buildup of reserves, as 100% of those monies are placed in the capital improvement project reserves. We are now moving forward on long overdue and outdated infrastructure needs. Last year, I presented a new and viable program that assists our community directly called the Bicycle Patrol, which primarily services PV Drive South and Western Avenue, and has played an important role in reducing crime on Western Avenue. We are engaged in the Volunteers on Patrol program, which has provided an additional 1,920 hours, as I've said before, in our city. When I was served as mayor last year, the council generated a comprehensive list of goals to improve our city on behalf of the residents. Updates are made monthly as these goals become reality. This is the first for our city. We have been able to make significant progress on such goals as public safety and a focus on crime prevention, San Ramon Canyon Stabilization Project, public infrastructure, government efficiency,
Your
fiscal
time.
control, and transparency.
Time is up.
Well, very good.
You want to finish the sentence?
And I want to thank the residents for the opportunity to serve on the city council and ask for your vote on November 5th for 4 more years.
Thank you
Thank you.
very, very much. Well, surprisingly, I have a closing statement as well. So you may not know it, but this election is about you. Participate in your government. Let your voice be heard. First of all, by joining the League of Women Voters, and then by exercising your right to vote on November 5th. Our membership forms are on the outside table, the information table in the hallway. Be sure to also log onto our website titled smartvoter.org. All of our candidates have placed their information on our website, smartvoter.org. You'll find information on our local candidates and on voting in general. And on behalf of the League of Women Voters, I would like also to thank the candidates for running and for coming this evening, and to each of you for being such an attentive audience. Our thanks also to Nancy Marv, our Voter Service Director, for our league, and to Joanne Waller, our president. The two of them were kind of reviewing the questions to eliminate duplication. And also to our timers, Terry Arnish, who was here, who collected the questions and assisted. I'd also like to mention when you can see this program on television. The video recording of our forum will be available for public viewing on RPV's city website, Channel 33, and will be aired Wednesday, October 9th at 10 a.m. and 8 p.m. through the following Tuesday. It's also on Verizon Channel 38, and it's streaming on the RPV website. Did I say that right? Yes? Okay. And lastly, for those of you who have further questions, I am sure our candidates would be willing to stay a few minutes longer if you wish to speak to them personally. Be sure to vote on November 5th. The polls will be open from 7 to 8 p.m. Remember, your vote is your voice. Thank you so much. Thank you.